Adaptive sailing's biggest Canadian event of the year just wrapped up in Montreal. We have the organizer behind it on the show to talk about how it all went and break it all down. Let's set sail and start today's episode.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Schmidt and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Schmidt, and I have the privilege to be joined by Dave Brown, a man familiar to many AMI watchers, listeners, for his countless different shows, appearances on everything and anything. Currently, you can find him on his program, Game Changers. Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Alex, it's my pleasure. You know I love talking into a microphone. You know I love being on camera. Diva Brown, the ego is always pumping over here.
Oh, no, you are, if anything, gracious with your time, your energy, your attention. I mean, I can never say too many nice things your way. But Dave, Give the audience at home a bit of an insight into your show Game Changers, because this is something you're entering into season 2 now. Like there's a lot of sport tie-ins with Game Changers.
Oh yeah, season 1 just finished airing last week, and season 2 is coming your way in just a couple of weeks in October on AMI TV, which is amazing. The entire concept behind Game Changers was to interview notable Canadians who are trying to make a difference, leading by example, putting words into action when it comes to accessibility and inclusion. So it's not just about their own individual accomplishments, but the work they're doing outside of either their profession or their competition that's truly trying to make a positive impact on the world. And it's not surprising that a lot of the folks that you tend to meet along the way are either former or current Paralympians. I would say so far of the 20 plus people that I've interviewed, I would say about half of them have some kind of connection to the Paralympic movement.
Yeah, you know, it's very funny that it's just that sport connection. I think it's always been an easy entryway for people to become comfortable within their own body, within themselves when it comes to disability, whether it's an acquired disability or it's that first sense of community for someone who maybe have been born with a disability but finally can be around people who share a similar life experience or a similar journey. And so having sport as a positive connection point really doesn't surprise me that you get so many people who have that connection there, who are making big differences and impacts within the community.
And sometimes it has nothing to do with their Paralympic career or their career in sports. I'll give you an example. Jamie Borisov was a competitive basketball player, wheelchair basketball player for a long time. But he ended up getting into the world of robotics at the British Columbia Institute of Technology. And the entire conversation he and I had nothing to do with his time in parasport and everything to do with the work he's doing with either robotic dogs that he's hoping to turn into futuristic bases for wheelchairs, other kinds of artificial intelligence and technology being utilized to rig up wheelchairs so that even as the world continues to lack accessibility, a person with a disability can blow right past barriers with the right tech in their hands. So, you know, there's an example of someone who was an elite world-class Hall of Fame athlete, but who's absolutely making a contribution elsewhere because of the platform and the foundation that a life in athletics gave them.
No, that's phenomenal. And it's exciting to kind of be able to dive into those types of topics, meet those people who are doing something so unique, so different, and trying to chart a new path forward, so to speak, in the world of accessibility. And, you know, a bit of a sloppy segue, I will say, but I think it's still relevant, Dave, because when we talk about charting a path forward in the world of parasport, the big one has been para ice hockey and the women's movement within para ice hockey. It is technically still an open competition at the Paralympics, but there has been few, if any, that have really had an impact on the Paralympic level when it comes to the women's side of the game. So the fact that we had just wrapped up the women's inaugural para ice hockey world championship is huge. It's a huge movement setting precedent for the sport, for the idea of gender equity in sports and women's movement too. they just wrapped up. The Canadian team came away with a silver. It was a dominating win by the U.S., a 7-1 win, but the women on Team Canada say, you know what, this is actually a positive result. We're a lot closer than the score may seem. What are your takeaways from the inaugural Women's World Para Ice Hockey Championships?
Alex, I think you set that up really beautifully because there's a couple different components going on here. And I'm so happy that you mentioned the gender equity component of this and the growth of women's para ice hockey within the broader para ice hockey movement, within the broader Paralympic movement. And I promise this won't just be self-plugs the entire time I'm on your show, but one of the people that I spoke to was Maggie Manning on one of the early episodes of Game Changers. And Maggie Manning is the goaltender for Team Canada's women's para ice hockey team. And she and I spent quite a bit of time talking about what it's going to take to grow the women's side of the game. And it's a combination of international events like this being held abroad, in this case, Slovakia. And it's not just about the sporting result. It's about getting a number of countries up to a world-class standard, which will then allow the sport to continue to grow into the broader Paralympic movement. Because there can be battles for inclusion within a broader battle for inclusion, and that's something that it represents. So I'm so glad you mentioned that side of it, because this was a huge step forward in terms of international competition. It got a lot of coverage on Radio Canada. The Canadian Paralympic Committee was talking about it. Certainly you and I are talking about it today. And then there is the sporting side, which is coming away with a silver medal, which is excellent, but it's seen success with countries like Norway and Great Britain being there. And it's maybe another needle in the side of the Team Canada para ice hockey movement more broadly, where the Americans have just been a poison pill for both the men's side and now the women's side for a while now. And it probably speaks to the quality training facilities and resources that are being made available through USA Hockey to all of their equity-seeking hockey groups. Sorry, that was a really long answer. I apologize, Alex. I was rambling.
No, but that's exactly it. That was what I was going to follow up with, but you nailed it. It's the fact is the investment from USA Hockey is there, and you see the results from both on the men's side, the women's side. Even when we talk about blind hockey, like that's starting to see the impact of USA Hockey and the resources, the vast resources they have for these different para sports, and the intentionality to help grow those movements. It results in dominating wins. When hockey is Canada's game, sure, but it hasn't been for the past several years. And so I think if you want to see a change, that has to come from Hockey Canada. That has to come from a governance level, a funding level, and that is what, when we spoke with members of both the men's and women's side for para ice hockey, that's what it comes down to. It's like, we need more resources, more support. They're starting to get it, but the more you give, the more the results will be, and you'll turn those silvers into golds.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that there's actually going to be an event held in British Columbia at the Richmond Oval in a couple of days that's going to be an opportunity for young women and girls to try para ice hockey if they want to. It's being hosted by a few members of the team, including Maggie Manning. So that's the grassroots side. But then, like you said, Alex, institutional resources and funding, whether that's from Hockey Canada itself or perhaps even borrowing where the Americans also utilize their university sports system to fund a lot of opportunities for para athletics. I know the University of Illinois, for example, is one of the big ones in terms of creating opportunities for a lot of para athletes. You find a lot of Canadian athletes actually making their way south of the border for training opportunities. So you have to think about what can be done perhaps at the university level through the CIS as well, or U Sports Canada as well, to bring in more opportunities for high level training opportunities for athletes.
Absolutely. And then you'll see that growth across the country, not only on the domestic programs, but the international programs as well. And speaking of growth across the country, that is certainly something that is evident when it comes to adaptive sailing, because the Mobility Cup just wrapped up in Montreal, and they have had more success in this competition than they've had in the past. The sport continues to grow, and the legacy is huge. The impact continues to be felt across the country. We had a chance to have a conversation with the CEO of the Mobility Cup 2025, René Dallaire, and here's my conversation with René. René, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure, Alex.
So the Mobility Cup just wrapped up. How are you feeling now that everything is all said and done? How was the event overall?
Well, first of all, it's a very big event. It takes a lot of preparation. We worked almost all year about it, and we're very happy with the turnout, the results. There was fair winds all week, actually higher winds than usual on our lake, and most of all the people seem to have enjoyed very much the event.
And for someone who may not be familiar with the Mobility Cup, can you share a bit of kind of history and details about the annual event? It's something we've been covering for a while, but some of our audience may be less familiar.
Of course. Mobility Cup exists since 1991. It's been introduced as a sport. Adaptive sailing has been introduced by Sam Sullivan in Vancouver, and it's been going on ever since, every year. And starting back in 1996, it moved to a different city every year. So this year in Montreal, it was the fourth year that we were hosting the event. We did it in 2000, 2008, 2016, and we missed 2024 to host it in 2025.
Yeah, well, you were able to get the hosting privilege for this year. You mentioned, the winds were a bit stronger than what you're used to out on the water. But were there other whether challenges or unique opportunities with having the Mobility Cup in Montreal opposed to some other locations?
Well, we're lucky to have Lake St. Louis in Montreal. It's a very nice venue for events like Mobility Cup, because the club happens to be very, very, first thing you know out of the port, you're on the lake, So it's very quick access. It's great.
And for the one of the things I find very interesting with the Mobility Cup is you have, obviously, there's the national kind of oversight annually, but it also really comes down to the local clubs who take it on, who really kind of work to organize these events. I've had the chance to talk when it was in Lunenburg last year or in Toronto a couple years ago, and I always find it very fascinating that you have these clubs stepping up, and it's a lot to organize all this, but it's just the payoff. Every single person I've spoken to, they just are so proud of what they and their teams are able to do with it.
Yeah, well, we have Able Sail Network, as a matter of fact, that, is the umbrella organization for almost 17, if not 18, sailing clubs in Canada. And we all grow, we all share the same boat, which is a Martin 16, to sail, and each of the clubs have 2 or 3 or 4 boats, and the Mobility Cup by itself, gathers a lot of those boats together, and we are privileged also to have the CN, who transports year after year. They take care of transporting the boats from one city to another for the event. So this year we had 32 sailors, 16 in each fleet, gold and silver. So 16 boats were competing, 16 participants, I should say. It's not the boat that competes, it's the participant, it's the sailor.
And speaking of the boats, as you mentioned, like everyone's using the same base boat. But can you talk a bit about some of the accessibility features or adaptations that are made to the boat to make it accessible for the sailors?
It's really amazing. You see, if you take myself, for instance, I don't use my arms at all. And I'm able to sail that boat because there are some features that allow me to control the rudder and control the sails. I have two straws in my mouth, and one controls the rudder. If I sip, it will bring the rudder one way, and then if I puff, it'll go the other way. Same with the sails. I puff and the sails go out, and I bring the sails in by sipping in the tube. So in that matter, for me it was, I've been disabled now for many years, but when I started sailing in '94, I realized that there was no sport before that I could really share and use and compete. And for me, competition has always was a big thing before my accident. So to have a sport where I could compete and feel at the same level as anybody else, even though I was, I'm more severely disabled than most of the people, because the boat is we're able to use it. If somebody's paraplegic, for instance, and has good arms, well, he's able to use everything. He's sitting in the middle of the boat. He has a joystick in front of him for the rudder, and all the sheets, we call them sheets, they're ropes that are able to control the sail and make different adjustments. Everything is very easy to reach with their hands and arms. Those with more limited possibility are able to use a joystick, which is a joystick that is the equivalent of the control of a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair. And that's how they can control the sail and the rudder. And myself, as I said, I use sip and puff.
Oh, that's phenomenal, and it's just the advancement in that technology to make it so that freedom that it affords to yourself and the other sailors who are using those adaptive equipment is phenomenal. I want to find out from you, like, what is that feeling like when you are out on the water and you are sailing, you're there yourself, and you look to the left or to the right and you see other adaptive sailors also on the water, just enjoying the sport that you're so passionate about?
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's silence, except for the sails that are, sometimes fluttering, like shaking and making noise, but otherwise, and the boat moves, especially with high winds like we had last week. It was amazing. The boats were going all over the place, and we were, especially in Gold Fleet and also in Silver Fleet, both of them sailors know what they're doing, and we're able to move the boats all over the place, as I said, because there's always it's like going to Rome with many roads. The sailors will choose a way that will be different from others, because the more you're clear of other boats, the best wind you will catch. So that's part of it too.
Yes, that's strategy, right?
Challenge.
Yeah, because you don't want other people stealing the wind or blocking the potential wind your sails are going to get. So that makes total sense. And you had talked about your love of the competitive nature of the Mobility Cup. Let's talk a bit about the hardware that was given up. Can you share a bit on some of the big winners from the Mobility Cup this week?
Yeah, well, the winner it's not his first. The winner's from Ottawa. It's Brian Pickover who won the Mobility Cup this year. The other one, there's somebody from Toronto, Tracy Schmidt. Tracy Schmidt is quite a character, actually. She calls herself Unstoppable Tracy, and she's somebody that that she doesn't have arms and legs, and she's able to sail her own boat herself, alone in the boat. She's amazing, really, and she came in second this year, which is really, really good. Third was Andrew Davis from Vancouver. Andrew is always there for Mobility Cup. He's a good friend, funny person. Always a pleasure to sail against him.
Well, and
yeah.
You talked about how Montreal has hosted the Mobility Cup multiple times, and you're always getting excited to have it come back to the city. But what is the impact or the legacy that you see the Mobility Cup having on adaptive sailing, not only in Montreal, but when you spread it across the rest of the country, that impact that it can have on Canada as a whole?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that we're moving it from one city to another, in the case of Montreal, we can say that we're old timers at it right now. But let's say last year it was in Lunenburg. That was a city that never hosted the Mobility Cup, and they were able to bring the event to a very, very high standard. And it's been a big boost for adaptive sailing in that area. Nova Scotia, as a matter of fact, they have 3 programs going on right now. One in Halifax, another one in North Sydney. North Sydney was the host of another Mobility Cup, and the same thing happened at that area. That legacy to promote new programs, to build new programs, is very important to the Mobility Cup event.
And next year, the competition heads to Vancouver. Do you have any advice fresh in your mind coming off of a week of competition that you would share with the hosting club out in Vancouver?
Well, it's going to be a challenge for them because they've been, the last time it was in Vancouver, which originated, as a matter of fact, but the last time is already 2010. So the people that were there in 2010 are not there anymore. So they're going to have to really do their homework to host a good Mobility Cup. But at the same time, Able Sail Network is around, and there's a committee that every year is composed of the prior chair people of previous Mobility Cups. So it goes back 5 years back. So that committee will be working hard with the people in Vancouver to get it done.
Yeah, well, they're going to have a hard baseline to beat after Montreal this year. I mean, it's a great success, so it's going to be hard for them to match and exceed.
Yeah, but it's always the case, and we always take people generally take a good pride to make it better every year.
Absolutely. I want to get you out on this question because I'm curious about your own hopes, and I would love to find out from you. If you could go sailing anywhere in the world, where would you love to go sailing?
Oh my God, I love San Diego. I've done it before, but I would love to sail in Australia. Yeah.
Any reason why that's jumping out to you?
Well, Australia is a big sailing community, and the fact that it's something, first of all, it's a big trip, to get there, but to see, because I've sailed the States. Hawaii would be a place I would like to as well, but I believe Australia is even better for sailing opportunities.
Oh, that's fantastic. René, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
And that was my conversation with René Dallaire of the Mobility Cup competition. Dave, lots to pull from when it comes to Mobility Cup it's one of those competitions I've been following now, like sneakily following for the past like 4 or 5 years. Like I didn't even realize that I've been so invested in this competition, but it's like when I look back, oh yeah, I was talking with them about Toronto back in 2023. We had them on the show in 2024 with Lunenburg. I was tracking it even prior to the Toronto competition. But this is something that it just speaks so much, that grassroots movement meeting up with a national spotlight. You're gaining athletes all over the country, some international as well, and it highlights an adaptive and growing sport.
Well, I don't want to necessarily just single out one particular organization, but once again, I'll give you a Game Changers link in here. I had a chance to speak with Tracy Schmidt, who's one of the adaptive sailors who takes part in these kinds of competitions. In fact, I believe Tracy was taking part in this competition in Quebec, which is amazing. She gives so much love to Able Sail Toronto, which operates out of the Toronto Yacht Club, and as I had a chance to speak to her and a couple of the people that she works with in Toronto, they are at maximum capacity in terms of spots to arrange sailing for different people with different disabilities. And that's not uncommon for these programs all across the country. So it's a demand thing. People are really getting into the sailing from a participatory point of view, but these programs are also going above and beyond in creating adaptations to make the sport truly inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Renee talked about how the legacy of a Mobility Cup being in Lunenburg last year, now they have a club program that is full. It has the excitement of the community, but also from that adaptation standpoint. He spoke about how he is able to use a sip and puff system to be able to go and sail on his own, which is just remarkable. The level of ingenuity, the accessibility, the adaptation to provide that independence for sailors to be on the water on their terms is nothing short but remarkable.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's amazing, and it's from everything. It's from it's the true universal design that you and I are always talking about in our various programming. It's from the parking lot to the clubhouse to the dock to the boat to the water, man. Like these are considerations that are being made to make sure people can enjoy the sport, because listen, sailing can be ultra competitive. It can also be incredibly recreational. I went out deep into Lake Ontario with Tracy. I'm more of a land faring creature, so it was a little concerning for me to go that far into Lake Ontario. But man, once you start riding the waves and the wind is pushing you along, it's heaven. It's nirvana. I don't know which religion I want to borrow from for talking about pure inner peace, but my goodness, dude, you can tell why people just dig this sport so much.
See, my problem with sailing has always been anytime I've been in a boat, like I enjoy the water. I love doing it. I was just always a big guy in a small boat. And the most consistent thing I would hear is boom, and what? And it gets smacked in the side of the head by the swinging bar of the sail going back and forth across. So I'm glad you didn't have that issue come up while you were out with Tracy. But yeah, for me, that's always my synonymous experience when it comes to sailing. But maybe adaptive sailing. Maybe I can find a way to adapt that boom so it doesn't hit me in the head every single time I'm out.
Considering my girth, it's not the boom that I was worried about. It was about tipping the boat when I first got in.
Well, Dave, you didn't tip the boat on today's episode. It was smooth sailing with you. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight, your perspective. It's always great catching up with you, man. Thanks again.
Alex, I always enjoy sailing away into the sunset with you.
Well, with that, we bid adieu and bon voyage to you at home. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.